الرحمن الرحيم. في محاضرة اليوم سوف نتكلم عن الثورة الصناعية. هذه المحاضرة مسجلة من الكتاب The Industrial Revolution. So when we talk about the Industrial Revolution, we talk about the developments, the changes that transformed Great Britain between 1750 and 1830 from a largely rural population making a living almost entirely from agriculture to a town center society engaged increasingly in factory manufacture. So here we talk about transformation of society, rural society based on agriculture into industrial society based on factory manufacture. So we have a drastic change. People who immigrate from villages to the cities in order to work in factories. So these changes happened between 1750 up to 1830. And we explained before in a series of lectures about the Industrial Revolution, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. With the translation, you can go back to these lectures and hear it well and understand it well. Industrial Revolution created a drastic change into the English society, as many thousands of women throughout rural Britain saw their spinning wheels become redundant and their jobs disappear into the factories. They moved to the cities. As said, people start immigrating from villages to cities. Normally, human beings look for and search for work and jobs. They move from a place to another place looking for jobs. So here we find thousands of women throughout rural Britain saw their spinning wheels become redundant. Means that nobody comes to buy their products, so their jobs disappear into the factories. Now we have factories, and now we have large factories which can manufacture thousands of products. So they move to the cities to find jobs. The towns offer a better chance to work and higher wages than the countryside. The towns offer the better chance of work and higher wages than the countryside, where many families were trapped in their poverty and seasonal employment. So the towns a better chance of work. Normally, the city offers more opportunities and more jobs and the higher wages than the countryside. Human beings look for more jobs, look for more wages, where many families were trapped in their poverty. So job is not only a job that I can work, but it is a saving instrument for me. It is a saving instrument for people who are trapped in their poverty and seasonal employment. So here we talk about unemployment of people who look for jobs, who look for wages, and who look for money in order to sustain their families and in order to be able to live. On the other hand, the countryside was healthier. The Industrial Revolution gathered steam, accelerated the migration of population from country to the city. Due to the Industrial Revolution, we have acceleration of the rate of migration of the population from the country to the city. The result of this movement was the development of purifying the slums and cramped housing in the overcrowded areas. Now, thousands of people are leaving countryside and moving to the cities, so they don't have places to live, and they don't have much money to rent flats, They sleep in slums and they sleep in the streets. So they live in a very bad, miserable conditions due to the higher rate of migration. The result of this movement was the development of horrifying slums, bad and miserable conditions of living, and cramped row housing in overcrowded areas. In the overcrowded cities. So London was overcrowded. Other capitals of Europe were overcrowded. We have many problems, health issues, health problems, work problems, sanitary conditions, which were not so good, were very bad. So we have problems which are natural results of the Industrial Revolution, and the English society goes into a drastic change and moves into another direction from agriculture to industry. These changes were not only reserved for immigration from countryside to the cities, but also we have changes in religion in the Victorian age. England, as we know, after reading the history of the struggles between the Protestant and the Catholic, and we know the bloody history of the kings and the queens of England, when we go back to our lectures, when we talk about Henry VIII, when we talk about Elizabeth, when we talk about James I, when we talk about Charles first, when we talk about Charles II, when we talk about the Puritans, we remember that, we remember how bloody was that history. England was a deeply religious country. A great number of people were habitual churchgoers, people who go to the church at least once or probably twice every Sunday. The Bible was frequently and widely read by people of every class because we have conservative Puritan middle class in England, and those people are very religious. They go to the church every Sunday, and the Bible was frequently and widely read by people of every class. So, two were religious stories and allegories. Allegories shared towards the end of the Queen Victoria's reign, the hold of organized religion upon the English people began to slacken for several reasons. So, in England, which was deeply religious country, people used to go to the church once or twice every Sunday. The Bible was frequently and widely read by people of every class and respected by people of class. By the end of the century, by the end of the rule of the Queen Victoria, people started doubting religious institutions, started doubting religious beliefs. So they were skeptical about the religious beliefs. For that reason, we say here that we look at the last three lines, we say, yet towards the end of Queen Victoria's reign, the hold of organized religion upon the English people began to slacken, to weaken for several reasons. Education in the Victorian age. Education in the 19th century England wasn't equal, not between the sexes and not between the classes. Education was only reserved for the upper class people and the rich people. Gentlemen would be educated at home by a governess or a tutor until they were old enough to attend Eton, Harrow, Rugby, Winchester, Westminster, Charterhouse, or a small handful of little schools. So education was reserved for the gentlemen, rich people, upper class people. They used to bring a governess or a tutor home to teach their kids until they were old enough to attend the schools like Eton, Harrow, Rugby, Winchester, Westminster, and the Charterhouse, or a small handful of little schools. The curriculum was heavily weighted towards the classics, the language and the literature of the ancient Greece and Rome. And here we have to remember in the novel of Jude the Absecure by Thomas Hardy, Jude was reading classics, was reading Greek and Latin languages in order to go to first minister. So the languages of literature and literature of ancient Greece and Rome were studied during this time. So the curriculum was heavily weighted towards the classic, means it was designed to teach people the languages and literature of ancient Greece and Rome. After that, they would attend Oxford or Cambridge, where they might also study mathematics, law, philosophy, and modern history. So they would attend Oxford after that, and they might also study mathematics, law, philosophy, and modern history. And this reminds us of the dream of Jude, whose dream is to go to Oxford, which was, fictionalized in the novel as First Minister. So poor people and working class people were not allowed to attend the schools or to have a proper education. For that reason, we say education in the 19th century England wasn't equal, not between the sexes and not between the classes. Women were not allowed, to have education at that time, or they were considered as inferior to man. They have no brains and they cannot think properly like man. And it is not only about the differences between the sexes which were emphasized during the Victorian age, it is also about the inequality between the classes. So education wasn't equal between the classes. In the end, we talked about the rule of Queen Victoria, we talked about religion, and we talked about education. هنعمل ملخص سريع باللغة العربية، ليه؟ طبعا لأنه أنا هدفي الوصول إلى أعلى ناس وأعلى جمهور، تمام، ممكن يستفيد ممكن يفهم. تكلمنا هنا عن الثورة الصناعية وعن التغير الاجتماعي، وأن كيف المجتمع انتقل من مجتمع زراعي إلى مجتمع صناعي وما تبعه من تغيرات جذرية. الناس هاجرت بالآلاف وبالملايين إلى المدن، طبعا بحثا عن العمل وبحثا عن الوظائف. اضطروا يعيشوا في ظروف صعبة وسيئة في عشوائيات تفتقد إلى الأسس الآدمية للحياة الكريمة. عانوا من أمراض، عانوا من مشاكل لا تحصى ولا تعد في هذه العشوائيات. طبعا معظم الروائيين الإنجليز كتبوا عن هذه المعاناة نتيجة للثورة الصناعية اللي تكلمنا عنها في محاضرات على القناة في أكثر من حلقة، ممكن أنتم تشوفوها. التغيير لم يكن فقط على أنه تغير مجتمع من الزراعي إلى الصناعي، كان هناك تغير ديني أيضا، وأن الناس بدأت تشك في الدين. نعرف المجتمع الإنجليزي المجتمع الديني محافظ متدين من خلال الحروب الدموية من أيام الكنيسة حتى القرن السابع عشر، ونعرف قديش دموية القرن السابع عشر والصراع بين الملوك من أيام هنري 8 إليزابيث جيمس 1 تشارلز فيرست الذي أعدم تشارلز سكند بيوريتن بيبل. كنت ترجعوا لهذا التاريخ، ولكن في نهاية العصر الفيكتوري بدأوا يشككوا في المؤسسة الدينية وأنها مؤسسة نفعية تبحث عن مصلحتها الخاصة وتبحث عن الربح وتستغل معاناة الفقراء والمساكين، وبدأ الناس يبتعدوا عن الدين وصولا إلى العلمانية في العصر الحديث. النقطة الأخيرة اللي تكلمت عليها في هذه المحاضرة، تكلمت أيضا عن التعليم. التعليم لم يكن هناك مساواة في التعليم بين المرأة والرجل، ولم يكن هناك مساواة في التعليم بين الطبقات. الغني طبعا يحق له التعليم، وكان طبعا يجيب مدرس خاص أو مدرسة خاصة إلى البيت لكي تعلمه، ولكن الفقراء كانوا محرومين من التعليم، كانوا محرومين من التعليم لأنهم فقراء أو طبقة عاملة working class. وهذا ما صوره توماس هارفي في روايته جود ذا أبسكيور، أن فقر الجود وانتمائه للطبقة العاملة حرمه من طموحه من التعليم. وهذا حنشوفه في رواية جود أبسكيور للكاتب الإنجليزي العظيم توماس هارفي. هيك بنكون عملنا ملخص سريع باللغة العربية. إذا أعجبك هذه المحاضرة تنسوش التعليق وتنسوش الاشتراك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.